Seemingly, it was a ghost that walked into this apartment and brutally ended the lives of two young college students. Would the killer ever be found? Hello, true crimerers. This is the case of Mary Petry and Bill Sproat. Viewer discretion is advised. It was February 27th, 1970 in Columbus, Ohio. It was a cold, freezing night. A woman named Martha Petry woke up in the middle of the night and she said she felt someone strangling her, or she was having a hard time breathing. She said she felt like she was choking to death. It was terrifying. But the reality is nothing was happening to her. But what she would soon find out is that maybe, just maybe, she was having some sort of premonition. Because at the same time she woke up feeling like she can't breathe, feeling like she was being choked to death, her sister Mary was being murdered. On the morning of February 28th, 1970, the bodies of 20-year-old Mary Petry and 22-year-old Bill Sproat, who were boyfriend and girlfriend, were found brutally murdered inside Bill Sproat's apartment. Bill Sproat had been stabbed over 20 times. Mary Petry had been stabbed roughly 12 times. She was sexually assaulted, and her head was bashed in with a bowling ball. This was an absolutely horrific murder. There were bloody fingerprints found at the crime scene. Fingerprints they know did not belong to Mary or Bill. And to this day, no one has been linked to those fingerprints. Mary and Bill, they were college students. They had been dating for about a year or so. Mary was studying at Mount St. Joseph College in Cincinnati, Ohio, and she was there studying French. Bill was a grad student at OSU who had earned a French degree from Xavier College, and he and Mary were just so madly in love with each other. Bill was so excited to introduced Mary to his group of friends. Mary's sister, the one who woke up in the middle of the night, was her twin sister. And so they say that, twins could have some sort of ESP. She may have been experiencing what Mary was actually going through. Mary's sister Martha would say that she saw Mary's love for Bill, and it was real. It was genuine. And Bill's love for Mary was real. It was genuine. Bill was fascinated by French culture, which is one of the reasons why Mary quickly, fell for him, because she too was very much in love with the French culture. She was learning French, she had studied in France, and it is just something that the two of them really bonded over. Mary's twin sister would tell people in an interview that her and her sister liked to pull these pranks at Christmas or Thanksgiving dinners where, because they were twins, identical twins, they would play this joke. If someone referred to them as the other twin, they would just go with it and say oh, yeah, that's me. I'm Martha, or hi, yep, that's me, I'm Mary, even though it was opposite. And that's just kind of who Mary was as a person. She was, a fun-loving individual. Her sisters would say that she was the quiet one of the two. And the two of them were actually, they had, I think, 3 other siblings. She grew up with an absolutely lovely family, and Bill grew up in a very lovely family. Both Mary and Bill, they had no enemies. They never really got into any kind of trouble. They were really, really good students. They got good grades. They were on their ways to both having very bright futures. And those futures would have been intertwined because, there was, you could see in Bill and Mary that they were really going to kind of live their lives together. But unfortunately, someone, a ghost, a complete stranger, someone they knew well, they don't know, walked into Bill's apartment that night and brutally ended their lives. The apartment had no sign of forced entry. There were no signs of a struggle. Bill had been bound with his wrists, and his wrists were tied to his ankles. And it doesn't sound like Mary was tied up in that same way. And because she was sexually assaulted, that is a possibility that was the motive for this crime, because nothing in the house was stolen. And so they really didn't know exactly the motive. It was Bill's roommate who walked in and discovered the bodies, but Bill's roommate was immediately ruled out because they can confirm where he was when these murders would have happened. Because based on timelines of Bill and Mary's movements with the roommate's movements, there's no way this guy did it. They believe that Mary and Bill had to have been killed between 7 p.m. and 10 p.m. that night. And because there was no apparent forced entry into the apartment, they believed that possibly Bill, because it was his place, had let their killer in, and that they knew the assailant. That isn't necessarily always the case. I mean, sometimes the door is just unlocked, and they don't really know if it was unlocked or not. Maybe someone knocked at the door, Bill opened it, and the person forced their way in from that point without having to kick in a door or break a window. So no forced entry doesn't always translate to it being someone they knew. This was also during a time where there had been other murders kind of in that general area. There had been other sexual assaults in the area, some solved, some unsolved. It was just kind of like a time where, unfortunately, crime was happening a lot in that particular area. Now, in terms of the crime scene, they recovered a bowling ball that had blood on it, and apparently it would match the wounds from Mary's head. They also recovered the knife, and the items that Bill was bound with was actually a wire hanger that had been undone, and then they tied him up with that. Early on in the investigation, police did reveal a composite sketch of an individual who is considered a person of interest or maybe possibly a suspect in this case. However, how they have obtained this composite drawing, like who it came from, I'm not 100% sure. But obviously this would have come from witnesses who likely probably saw a man who looked like this, possibly roaming the campus, roaming the apartment complex. They do have the fingerprint that was found at the crime scene that did not match either victim. And as the years have gone by, as technology has advanced, now we have the database, you can just put a fingerprint in and boom, it matches someone. It hasn't matched anyone yet either. So what about DNA? Well, based on evidence that was collected at the crime scene, there was some preserved DNA found there. But back in 1970, DNA technology that we have now wasn't even a thing. Like, it didn't even exist back then. And so sometimes you have cases like this where they didn't know how to collect certain things or to collect certain things because they didn't know what the future held. But they did collect evidence and store it. But I'm not too sure what type of DNA they have, whether it's like sperm or blood, touch DNA, I'm not sure. They have had suspects and persons of interest over the years. They've, interviewed people. They've done as much as they possibly could in terms of ruling out certain suspects and persons of interest, but they've never officially announced like this person is someone we think did this, or this is the person we think knows something about what happened. Unfortunately, the DNA has yet to match anyone. The fingerprints have yet to match anyone. They are hopeful that genetic genealogy, familial DNA, using Ancestry.com type websites will help them find out who this person was through that DNA that they have. But as of right now, nothing. This whole thing really is genuinely a mystery because neither Bill nor Mary had any enemies. They didn't have any jilted exes that they knew about. Was this a case of somebody stalking Mary and found their way to, followed her to Bill's apartment? And this was such a brutal crime. I mean, this was clearly to police and to other folks that this was a crime of passion. This was a horrendous murder. Not only were, they stabbed many times each, but to crush her head with a bowling ball as well and sexually assault her, I mean, that's personal. And they just could not find anyone at all who may have done this or wanted to do this to them. It has baffled police for 50 years. Could this have been a random person just walking through these apartments and said, I'm going to knock on whatever door and whoever answers, I'm going to get in there and kill him? Like, that could happen, I guess, which is terrifying, but it didn't look like that. It looked like this was someone they knew, but they couldn't find anyone who would do that. Like, it's just such a a bizarre case. Somebody did this. Somebody got into that apartment, into apartment C on the night of February 27th, 1970, tied up Bill, stabbed him 20 times, raped Mary, stabbed her 12 times, and then bashed her head in with a bowling ball. Someone did that. A monster. But who is the monster? Is it this guy whose composite they made up of? Is this a guy who was seen in the area? This guy may be the one, but they also don't know that for sure. And unfortunately, there is just still so much uncertainty, so much unknown about what happened in that apartment that night. They know how it ended. They just don't know how it started. They don't know the why, and they certainly don't know the who. Somebody somewhere out there has got to know the truth about who murdered Mary Petry and Bill Sproat. This killer may have talked, may have bragged. And yeah, it's been, 50 plus years. The killer is definitely probably in their 70s at least, maybe even in their 80s. It really just depends on who it was. The person may be gone. They may be dead. But that doesn't mean that they don't deserve to get the answers. It doesn't mean they should stop investigating because, well, the killer's probably dead. Or might be dead. But what if they're not? They may not serve much time in prison, but that's where they deserve to be. Because Mary and Bill were just getting started. I mean, they were in their very early 20s, very bright people, very intelligent, very much in love with just sort of culture, French culture. And that is just something they bonded and shared over. It was just such a profound part of their relationship. They were going to be successful. They were going to be happy. But someone didn't want that for them. And like I said, somebody somewhere out there has got to know the truth, and perhaps that someone is you. You can report your information anonymously. You do not have to say who you are. You just have to say what you know. Even if the killer is dead, their remaining family members, the victim's remaining family members, deserve to know what happened and who did this. They deserve the right to get justice if that person is still alive. But at the very least, they just deserve a simple answer. Who did this? If you have any information about the murders of Mary and Bill, please call 614-645-4036. Please help Bill and Mary get the justice they both rightfully deserve. But that is it for this case. True crime, a Rooney Dooney Dingleberry Dongs. I hope you found it interesting. As usual, hello, my name is Mike. If you are new to the channel, I tell true crime stories, so please subscribe if you're into that kind of thing. I'm trying to get to 100,000 subscribers. Maybe one day it'll happen because TikTok's going away. I'm definitely more known on TikTok. I have a few million followers over there, and TikTok might be going away very soon, in like a month or so, possibly. So if you're seeing this, hi, subscribe. In the meantime, while TikTok is still around for us in the United States, if you want to follow me over there, the links to do so are in the link tree in the description of this video below. Also in that link tree, you'll find my case list. The case list has like 6,700 plus names on it. It's alphabetical, so scroll through it. But if there's a case you want me to cover that you do not see on that list, just send me a really quick email, which is also listed below. I will then add that name to my list. I pick my cases at random. I will get to that case eventually. I just can't promise you when. But that is it for this video, True Crime Roonies. So until the next case, ta-ta for now.